And welcome to whatever this is. Welcome. How is everybody? Let me introduce myself. Hi, I'm Kiara Strings. I'm a trans woman, and this is the early stream. We are on day 23 of a month-long journey of this stream. Mm. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm still kind of blazed. The effects of a tall glass of water surely have hit me, or is still lingering.
I did smell it earlier.
Okay. I thought I hit it well.
Oh, you did.
Oh, God.
5 seconds into the room, I'm like, oh.
I didn't think you were listening.
I'm about to put the podcast on. I won't be able to hear you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Love you.
Love you too. He didn't hear that. Oh. Okay, so apparently it can be noticed. Oh, no. Well, I can easily say I should have at least stepped outside instead of just halfway out the door or the balcony. Oh, God. Honestly, I almost forgot that he was there because I'm still kind of a little buzzed. Um, yeah, I'm still kind of buzzed right now, a little bit. Mm. Mm. Hence, if I keep going back and forth, um, like if I keep going back and forth for water, you'll know why. Like again, it's still hitting me. Um, and before I went to bed yesterday, I ended up eating a whole bag of chips. It's in this Pop Tarts box right here. Note to self: no more sulfur. I'm sorry, Bob. I'm sorry. Um, but yeah, I tried to go to sleep because I had dysphoria. I had dysphoria when I tried to go back to sleep. It was, um, I ended up being awake enough until 3, and then I just went into, you know, um, yeah, my head is just, you know? Okay, some people are gonna be like, oh God, she's gonna be like this for the entire stream, isn't it? And I've done streams where I'm not sober. I'm just surprised that I actually woke up before. Um, yeah, I'm surprised I woke up before the alarm went off. You know. Excuse me. Um, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Um, hopefully, is this the early stream or the early stream? Um, well, first of all, hi Moonrose, how are you? I'm going to give you a shout out. If you're not following Moonrose, go follow her. She is a really talented artist and she has a really soothing voice. So it's pretty much like very tranquil. Her streams are very tranquil. So please go to her. Like, I'm glad that you're doing well. Well, the early stream implies that I stream starting at 4 in the morning. And it is 4 in the morning right now. I started the stream at around 3:59 apparently. So yeah, I can see why some people might miss my streams because There's a reason why it's called the early stream. It's because I stream at around 4 a.m. or 5. Um, lately, I want to. Lately, I wanted to stream at 4 in the morning. But I'm glad that you're doing well, honestly. Um, I'm glad that you're absolutely doing well. Your last couple of streams have been creative and very forthcoming. Um, you know, like I can never do art the way you can. You know, I Lord knows I've tried. Mm. Lord knows I've tried to do it. Only art I know of is bass guitar, and music is art. Apparently, um, no, music is art. Um, but yeah, welcome on in. I'm genuinely surprised to see you here. I'm used to seeing, I'm not used to anyone. It takes a lot of practice. I'm still improving. Yeah, I know it takes a lot of practice, but um, I remember when I was in school, and we always had, like, most of the time, like, at least one semester a year, we'd have art class, and I'm like, I'm not good at this, I'm good at writing. I'm good at, no, that's it. I'm good at writing, but I can't draw, which I don't know why I couldn't have just Captain Underpants it and actually, if I ever wanted to make a book for children, I could have at least gotten somebody to draw the pictures, you know? Because I'm not saying that writing is my strongest point. I'm just saying it's a step above me trying to draw something, even if it takes practice. Because, like, for me, writing is absolutely something I love doing. I love performing. Um, but whenever, like, my favorite part of making a YouTube video that's scripted is that I write. That is probably my favorite part of the whole process. Just thinking about talking points and thinking about those talking points in them or topics to talk about and just write. You know? There's something not poetic, but there is something downright cathartic about writing. Um, I'm not gonna say that I'm the greatest writer. My writing is flawed, as you can see on my fan fiction, which I will not actually show. I'm not gonna tell you where my fan fiction is. Just know that I started it in high school, and it got a lot more immature. You see, when I was in elementary school, I used to write a lot of horror. Like, I grew up with horror that it was pretty much like, I grew up with the kind of horror that was jump scares and a whole lot of blood. That's the horror I actually grew up with. Um, so I remember being a part of that and then watching the original Dracula with Bela Lugosi and feeling slightly disappointed because I'm like, okay, I personally assumed that the original Dracula movie was going to be a horror classic, and it is. I just thought it was gonna be full of jump scares. And my little kid mind was like, I'm kind of disappointed, but it's whatever. But my writing pretty much changed in terms of schools. Like I remember when I was a kid, and I was a big horror hound. So I think in the sixth grade we actually had to do short stories, and with the exception of one or two, all of those were just horror. Like all of them were just horror books, and they were called Ray's Nightmares, which is pretty much like the character called Ray goes to sleep, and he gets into a nightmare, and most of the time he dies. Keep in mind, I was in the sixth grade. And I was writing about exploding houses for no reason, blood, screaming and running. And somehow I got good grades because of it, even though it's like fairly violent. Oh my god. And then when I was in high school, I kind of stopped that and went to fan fiction and DeviantArt. I am not like it went from horror to straight up parody, and I don't mean horror like parody of my own writing. I mean genuine trying to make fun of other things and failing. And DeviantArt is another thing. Let's just say a friend of mine who follows me on that platform was, well, they put it to me best. It's pretty much the writing per somebody who wrote and was very horny. That's all I can say. I what's the word I'm looking for? I had sexual frustrations during the last period of high school, and you could just see how much is in the DeviantArt profile I did. Um, and then it was fan fiction a lot. Um, a lot of fan fiction. So I kind of degraded into like a parody. Gosh. Every once in a while I write something serious, but mm, like I tried writing poetry. So I ended up using like I remember when I was in my first job, I actually had a notebook and um, and a thesaurus, so I can just write the most complicated poetry, and it turned out to be a lot more eh. And actually, come to think of it, while I was just writing and writing and writing, I ended up writing an entire story, an entire queer story. It was, yeah, like I'm genuinely surprised because it just went on for 5 seconds, and then I started writing another. Holy crap! Okay, I can't really say I wrote any fan fiction. I was inspired by the writers I read, but I always wanted to write stories about my own characters and settings. I mean, go for it. Absolutely go for it because I've seen how creative you are on stream. As for school, my writing essays are usually like action. Oh, okay. Um, in like in terms of like writing essays, I didn't think you would write about action movies. Like, but that's good on you. That's something I don't know. But yeah, wanting to write stories about your own characters and settings, go for it. That's absolutely grand. And considering that you have made your own art or you're making your own art of other creations, that's pretty much like a step towards create. That is pretty much creating your own characters if they are not well, they're like if you didn't create them. Um, yeah, but like, who did inspire you to uh, write stories or um, yeah, who did inspire you? Um, Crap, I don't know who inspired me when I was a kid. I think it was just R.L. Stein, but that's pretty much a lot of kids today. Or um, like that's a lot of kids. Just like if they want to get into horror, him, J.K. Rowling, and Stephen King. I actually I read a fair share of Stephen King, not a lot, but I remember reading Dreamcatcher, The Shining. There's more. I can swear there's more that I read when I was a kid. It was. Let me see. Steve, Stephen King. Um. Yeah, I I'm surprised. I thought I actually read a lot more, but turns out I think I only read like uh let me see. Na, 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 na. Bibliography. Um, Let me see. As a kid, I read The Shining. Um, did I read The Dead Zone when I was in elementary school? I think I read The Dead Zone. I'm not sure. I think I did. Um, and Dreamcatcher. Because I found that there was a movie called Dreamcatcher, and I guess it would be like War of the Worlds, alright? The Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis. The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. In my youth, fantasy and science fiction always appealed to me. Yeah, that's fair. Um, I've never, um, I never got a chance to read H.G. Wells, but I did. I mean, it was a class thing, but we did read *The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe*. Mm. So you were, so you're kind of into the Narnia Chronicles. Yeah, the only book I ever read was *The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe*, and then I spoiled myself with everything else. Like, I don't know as to why. Um, I don't know why our teacher actually ended up like, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, just making us start from the second one. But I tried to write in the same kind of style, but failed. Stephen Donaldson. Stephen Donaldson. Hold on a minute. Uh, Let me check something. I think Stephen Donaldson. Hold on a minute.
What's happening?
Nothing. Okay, so it
Is
was.
the house on fire?
No, the house is not on fire.
Is it Northern Lights?
No, yes, it's Northern Lights. It's Aurora Borealis.
Mm-hmm. All right.
He wrote the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, among others. Okay, so I actually thought, because I thought my boyfriend, um, I thought he had Stephen Donaldson books, but it turns out they're Brandon Sanderson. So I am just all over the place. Um, yeah, I was just all over the place. I never heard of the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, honestly. A series of 10 high fantasy novels. Okay, alright. Um, Honestly, the only fantasy I actually have ever read was Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. Um, there were a few others when I was a kid, but I never really got into high fantasy. He wrote them in the 70s and 80s. Okay. Um, I never really got into the high fantasy art, I'm gonna be honest. Like I never really got into it considering that I was more into horror. But I did read a few later on, like when I got out of school. Um, for me, high fantasy is my power metal. Like I can see why people really like it, but I genuinely cannot get into it. Oh, does Discworld count? Because I did try. I did read the first two Discworld books. Um, and I only knew about Discworld because Terry Pratchett died, and that was when I got curious. So I ended up reading the first two books. The Rinse, Wine, and Two Flower books, and they were interesting. I know that I should have started with another series of books because Discworld actually has certain parts to them. Um, but I remember reading them and they were fine, fantasy and mixed in with a lot of humor. And I did try to write a fantasy story, but it's only like seven or um, 8 pages. Like like last year in between jobs, I actually had notes written out. You know, I had a couple of stories written out, and one of them was horror. Um, Let me see. Okay, here we go. Um, Fantasy story. Oh, I'm trying to do the Dan Harmon story. When it comes to horror books, some of the first I read were The Rats by James Herbert and Night of the Crowds by Guy N. Smith. Since then, I've read and liked Dean Koontz books. I probably should read some Dean Koontz, although the only reason I know about Dean Koontz is through Stephen King. I think. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's because Stephen King actually, like, wrote Takes That's about him, because in the movie It, there was, like, a prison guard whose name was Koontz, and that guard was pretty much attacked by a dog in a jump scare. Um, mm. and but I wasn't always overly fussed on Stephen King's writing style. I totally get it because unlike Stephen King, unlike other authors, he does not edit down his books. Like that's why his books are door stoppers. Like his It book is 1,000 pages long, and the unabridged version of The Stand is also 1,000 pages. I think I've seen more movies based on King than his actual books. Honestly, in between the movies and books, I think they're both fascinating, but I think his books are better because sometimes his books, his especially his horror books, cannot really be translated well into the movies. Um, Unless it's the simplified thing, like Carrie. Like Carrie's a good example of it doing absolutely right because it's fantastical, but you can see it happening in real life. Um, like Carrie is an amazing book that I've read a little too much. Um, it is fine. Like but yeah, like I completely get it in terms of like Stephen King's writing because he does go a little bit too far in terms of because Stephen King, for all that he's really good at, he does not um, shorten his novels. Like he says things that he says things in 4 pages that he could have in like a paragraph. You know. Um, yeah, and like I do appreciate his novels. But I am in the middle of reading what those books are. The Dark Tower series, like I could only find the first 3 or 4, and I really want to read the rest of those. Like I have a couple of Stephen King books. I don't know why how I've been interested in Stephen King outside of Goodreads because for a long period of time I did not read any of his novels. And then I found out that I remember one day I found out that he was through Goodreads he made a sequel to The Shining, and I'm like, oh, are you serious? Wait, he did it? And that's how I began to read Stephen King again. Um, it was it's genuinely shocking. I tend to write long as well. I had to force myself to to trim my novels down to a more manageable rate. That's totally fine. Like I get it. But you do run the risk sometimes of either um, saying way too little, because there is something called, yeah, show don't tell, but sometimes it's way too vague. Um, so that's pretty much as to why, you probably know that Stephen King writes like 15 pages a day, hence why his work, like his books, come out in like intervals. Um, for in 2013 and 14, he released 4 books. Although one of them was pretty much just like a novella. Like his last book was last year's Holly. Like I didn't think I would be able to like read any of those Bill Hodge detective books. Like, holy mother of God! Like, honestly, like, oh my God! Okay, so um, it goes to show you that not everybody is really on their phones all the time. Because I remember going to my boyfriend's house on the train. Like, when I read It Comes Down to Flood, I wrote a 600-page novel in 3 weeks. So, holy mother of God, what is that? Like 250 pages a week? Yeah, that's 250 pages in 1 week. 250 pages in the first 2 weeks, and then 100 in the last week. That genuinely is amazing. Um, yeah, that absolutely goes very hard. Although that's what the kids say. Um, yeah, I don't like I know what to write, but here's the thing. I know what to write. The problem with me is that I need a focus, you know, having ideas in my head or little bits and pieces in my I think I mentioned this on your stream. Um Little bits and pieces are in my head and I just need a focus. I need to just like pull them together and focus to make something coherent. Um
Your problem is you can't finish anything.
I finished stuff.
You get most enjoyment out of getting 70% for something and then stopping. That's the only way you can enjoy anything in your life.
Are you basing that on the games I play?
And various other things.
Like what?
You win this round. Oh, wait, I got it. We're 1 episode away from the Fallout finale.
2 episodes.
That's still closer to 70%.
Love, that's what 8. 6 out of 8 is not 70%.
That's closer to it, I meant.
No, we've watched shows together and finished them.
Yes, but I'm just saying majority of them we don't get through.
He calls me out on stream. That was absolutely surreal. Um, but I mean, he's not wrong. But he says that in terms of games, like music and all that. Like that's why I usually write things down. Yeah, that's usually why I write things down a lot in terms of music. Like I do, like he's talking about video games, which I will put into a lot of time in video games, like Hades. I have put into about 180 hours into Hades, and I know in a couple of weeks I'll just go to something else. Um, Only reason I'm playing Hades right now is because I want to get certain things in it, and I'm getting a lot of certain things. But in terms of music, like in terms of all that, I usually just like write things down and have them in the back of my head. So eventually, I will.
Alright, go to bed. Love you.
Love you too. Um, yeah, like in games, yeah, that's justifiable. Like, not shows, although there are shows I have not watched all the way through. Um, my goodness, the call out. Okay, so speaking of books, I actually a few months ago, on my way to see my boyfriend, and I was on after I met my friends in Toronto. I was on the train, and I actually had the book Holly, the as of right now recent Stephen King novel, and I was like reading it on the train, and then this woman behind me is like, "Oh, you're actually reading his book?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's really good so far." And she was pretty much like, "Oh, this is a good book." Um, so I'm glad that there are people out there who are reading instead of just being on their phones. Because, like I said plenty of times before, I've had people just look at what I was holding, which is a book. Um, because, like, even at my last job, I always had a book on my hand or in my hands. So, what would happen is that I would go on the bus with a book, my phone would be off, and I'd be reading. And every once in a while, somebody's asking me what book I'm reading. Especially like months ago when a guy on the bus actually asked me what I was reading. I always read on the train on the way to work. Yeah, the train is an absolute amazing commute in terms of like reading doorstopper books. Like, I was on a train to Toronto, and I read about 200 or something pages of the Rose McGowan book Brave, and like I was genuinely surprised because I probably read about 190 pages. Um, but like it's genuinely surprising, um, because like I don't think books are dying. It's just that some people are just not the. I don't want to say the new generation, but a lot of people just don't read anymore. Like I pretty much am like a woman in the '90s, just standing up in the bus and just reading a book. You know, whenever there's no seats, I just stand and I'm just doing this. I'm pretty sure I've become a relic of the '90s, even though I wasn't around then. I was not around in the '90s, as far as you know. But yeah, I grew up with a lot of books, according to my mom. Um, like I remember the most amount of books I ever borrowed from the library. I read a book called Dunction Wood. I still on the train and finished it. It was over 900 pages. It is 1,000 pages. We actually have a copy in the room here. And it's an older copy that my boyfriend got from his grandparents. Not in all one sitting, I might add. Okay, that's fair. Um, I don't think anyone can read 900 pages in one sitting or one day. I did read it twice, and since that was 1,000 pages, and Stephen King books can go really fast, I did the last time I read it. It took 4 days, and that's mostly because I would leave the house, read a lot, then go to Tim Hortons and read a lot, and then go to my locker and read, and then before like a few minutes before work, I'd read a little bit, and so on and so forth. Like last year on its own, I think I've read around 260 something books. I mentioned this to a coworker at my last job, and he was like, "Holy God!" Because like a lot of people are surprised about things. Like from the moment I went in to my last job to the moment I had to go, I some people were just genuinely surprised because I never went to work with like I very rarely came back with the same book I read the day before. Um, it got to the point where I ended up like reading like it was pretty much like the Gilmore Girls thing. Honestly, like if I don't like one book, I always have at least two others in my bag, and like I remember one night I was at a bus stop after work, and somebody actually came up to me and it's like, okay, listen, I've seen you read. Like, how do you just like? I don't even have the attention span. How do you read? And I'm like, because I've been reading since I was a kid. You know, I could get distracted a lot, but in terms of reading when I'm at work, it just goes like that. Like I'm pretty much like as focused as a laser beam. I genuinely, in terms of work, I need a focus. I need a focus for work and reading. Because at work I'm completely focused, but on my break I'm reading, and like my brain is just like trying to crunch together or put together a lot. Um, and at the same time, whenever I work, I do have my creative outlet. You know, um, like I don't know how. Like here's the thing in terms of working. I don't know how, but working actually kind of brings out my creative side because sometimes I'd be walking around and my brain is just thinking about other things and then something else and then it just comes together to make some sort of baseline or writing. I just can't be creative in a creative space, completely honest. Unless I am, what's the word I'm looking for? Unless I am with other creative people, like in terms of like making music or whatever. But I've never actually completely done that, if I'm going to be honest. Um, yeah, I've never really completely done that. But like, yeah, I could absolutely read. I could read long books even as a kid. Um, like reading is pretty much the gateway to imagination. Like I like although sometimes I will not finish reading a book or just read it later on. Like I remember trying to read the third Dark Tower book and I was so bored or no, the third or fourth. Actually the third and fourth. Like I remember reading both books at a respective period and I got so bored and so tired that I ended up reading something else. And then eventually I went back to those ones and I'm like, okay, okay. Um, but yeah, there are some books I genuinely do not like. Or I've realized that they're too immature for me. Like for example, over the past few years, I've really been into young adult books. Like when I was a kid, I never actually read young adult books. It was either juvenile horror or defaint horror or like adult books. Even when I was in the sixth grade, my cousin actually bought me a book by Tom Clancy called Cybernation, which I don't know how, but somehow I didn't lose that book. I still have that book. I read The Swiss Family Robinson by Joanne West as a kid. Um, Swiss Family Robinson. Why is that familiar? Um, okay. Ah, I see. Okay, that's fair. 328 pages. That's fairly long. That's pretty much novel size, but um, it's absolutely fascinating how it was made into a movie. I never watched the movie. I'm gonna be completely honest. Um, but in terms of like a few things, like yeah, like I, if I can, if I yeah, I don't think we actually our class actually um yeah, it was probably around 8 or 9 at the time I read that. I'm guessing you read it on your own because I know in my grade or where I'm from, we would actually have been assigned that book by our teacher. And I've said this before, I do not like it when, yeah, I don't like, I genuinely do not like when I have to be told to read a book. Like, we've read a few classics like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Um, Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. Yeah, I read on my own time. Okay, that's totally fair. I was an avid reader. I just did not want to read what other people are telling me to read. I mean, I think I was suggested a few books. What that I actually ended up reading, God, I forgot. Like there was like a couple, and then there was like a few that I suggested. Um, but yeah, it's pretty much like an invasion of privacy for me in terms of like you should read this if you like this, or it's like you don't know exactly what I'm reading, you know? Because I've been reading a lot of young adult books, and yeah, I'm slowly starting to catch up on it. Even though here's the thing about people who are like not young adults, and yeah, they're not young adults, and like past young adults and are afraid to look at young adult novels. Young adults do not young adults did not write those books for the most part. Um, it doesn't matter what age, just read any young adult book because a lot of those writers are not young adult novelists. Actually I did try to be a young adult novelist, but I'm like, actually I wrote a queer story, but that's it. Have you read the Three Investigator series? Um, Book series? Um, no, I don't think so. Um, no, I honestly have never read any of those books. I grew up with the Hardy Boys and not even Nancy Drew, just the Hardy Boys. Like those, the Bailey School Kids, and those are pretty much like the only mystery books I've read as a kid. Cause I thought they were enjoyable. It's just that, wait, Hardy Boys, Bailey School Kids, and Nate the Great. Those books I actually ended up liking as a kid. Mm. But yeah, I never read those. This is the first time I'm hearing about that. Um, but I in terms of a lot. I for a long time I really used to be into mystery novels, but no, the Three Investigators books were published from 69 to 87. I genuinely thought this was like one of those things that are um yeah, I genuinely thought that it was one of those series that actually goes on to present day. Like I yeah, I genuinely thought that, you know? Um it was written by Robert Arthur Jr. Um that's at least one story. No, that's not for that. Um but holy mother of God. Like yeah, I kind of sort of was into mystery a little bit, but there are some books that I took way too seriously, a series of unfortunate events. Um yeah, I took that seriously. Like I didn't know that there was dark humor in it. I just assumed that it was a really really sad thing. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so they were kind of in the end thing at the time. Oh, I genuinely part of me really wishes that there was an end thing in terms of literature. I really wish there was like an end thing. Um, like there is every decade, but not many people read anymore, and I'm kind of sad about that. Um, Support your local libraries, people. Um, those local libraries are like our best friends. Um, but yeah, genuinely, I Um, but I think I did read a few books that were older than me. I think so. But like honestly, in terms of reading it, I don't know. Like I used to read a fair share of Roald Dahl books. Like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Matilda, The Witches, the BFG. Which when I read that book, when I actually found out what it was about, I was fairly disappointed. But yeah, they were fairly good books. I remember as a kid, I did try to read The Witches, and I got terrified because of the illustrations. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I was genuinely scared at those illustrations. Like, it still would freak me out. But yeah. Yeah, I used to haunt the library. That's where I stumbled across Edgar Rice Burroughs, Robert E. Howard, Lovecraft, and many, many more. You are lucky, pretty much. I tried reading Lovecraft and I just couldn't do it, but in terms of the library, I rarely went to the public one. I only went to like the school library, and like I was like, you know. Once I finished reading all the Goosebumps books, I ended up just reading other books. I don't know what they are really because I did straight up used to from 2002 to 2003 or something. I think no here well fair warning, I'm a bit off because I actually had a tall glass of water and I'm still feeling the effects. So when I was a kid, I would write the books that I read and how many days it took me. And there was a fair share of books I know that I had read. But in my school, we never had like Stephen King or Lovecraft or anything. It was pretty much, yeah, it was pretty much nothing but, it was pretty much juvenile books because, like, they're still, at the end of the day, they're still kids' books. But high school, I didn't really go to the library for books. I got them for DVDs. To this day, I still kind of do. Because sometimes I don't want. Sometimes, like, this is before I had internet. This was like, um, yeah, like, holy mother of God. Um, but it wasn't until, like, college. In college, especially, I read a fair share of books. It was surprising to me how much looking back. But yeah, I genuinely just like the most amazing thing about the library is yes, you can find the thing that you want, but at the same time, you'll also find something that interests you. Like I remember a few times when I actually returned books, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna only borrow this one book. And then next thing I know, I come out of the library with 9 books, and I'm like, oh, Kiara, you dumb, dumb idiot. But yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of bookworms know how that feels. Um, like, yeah, like even in my childhood, I read a fair share of books and haunt the library. Although it was mostly for horror, like again, I was a big horror hound, and then eventually I started getting into biographies about actors I like, musicians I liked, just to see where they were before and up to that point. Um, like, I could just go in the room and pick out a random book from my bookshelf, just to show you where I am in real life, because right now I am genuinely loving young adult books. You know? Like, young adult books to me are absolutely fascinating. Um, I did try to read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books. I think I've read the first two, and then I moved on because, I was genuinely like, eh. Yeah, I was just like, yeah, for all that it's worth, the worst thing you can do about a book is hype it up to the nth degree. That's pretty, like, I think I've had that before, like, had that happen. Um, Being recommended a classic and it's just okay, you know? Um, like, again, like, went back to the Dracula discussion. I, yeah, the Dracula discussion involved, like, me watching the original Bela Lugosi flick as a kid and seeing and thinking that it wasn't good because I grew up with, like, I grew up watching very violent and bloody horror. I like the Hitchhiker's Guide books, but they do not. They do have a certain flavor of human that may not appeal to everyone. Humor. Why did I say human? Um, but yeah, I absolutely get it. I watched the movie with Martin Freeman before I read any of the books, and I don't think I can watch the movie because it's a little, I don't know, like, I've watched that Martin Freeman movie twice and I'm like, I think these are okay, but like, it's pretty much like how it is in the books, I think. It's just that I don't know, so a lot of people did not like it, you know? Like, a lot of people didn't like those books or that movie. Maybe it's because it just felt off because, like, the Hitchhiker's Guide was a lot more dry humor while the movie was a little bit more wackier. Um, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's that. I think I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, to me, I'm just like, yeah, I'm just pretty much like, um, it like all I know is that there was supposed to be more books. Douglas Adams died before like he could make any more books. So it's really really depressing, but yeah. Um my goodness, what else could I say about books? Like, again, like, Goodreads has actually got me into books that I never would be reading. Um yeah, there's a lot of young adult novels, like a fair share. Like, I'm gonna go back to, hold on, I'm gonna go to like my Goodreads and look at the books that I read last year. Let me see. 2024, no. Okay, view more. Okay, so last year I read 268 books out of 150. And like a fair share of these I never actually would have read. Like, I can easily tell you the last, like, this is the last book, this Walking Dead book was the last book I read when I was at my last job, and that was on Halloween, so take it for what it's worth. Um have you read much in the Star Wars Expanded Universe? I never read those. I honestly have never read any Star Wars book because, for me, my thing in Star Wars goes from the movies and some TV, and that's it. Um, like, that was pretty much like in terms of what I have read. Um, like, holy mother of God, just like looking at some of these books is like, I don't know where I was in terms of like a lot of these books. Um Holy mother of God. Yeah, like, I read a lot of these books when I was in my last job. I'm genuinely surprised. One of my favorite books is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, which is a a queer, which is a queer book. It is a queer book, and it's pretty much about. Hold on, let me put this on another page. Um, like, okay, just large. Oh, I can't do large. I can't largen it up. Open image in new tab. Okay, so this book is pretty much about a girl meeting another girl on the subway, like in the subway car, and they do fall in love. And honestly, I here's the thing. I never read the entire synopsis of this, and if you ever read One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, I'd say get it and do not read the summary. Just don't read the summary. I went into this like, and then I read the book. I'm like, okay, Holy Mother of God. I haven't read a book in a while. Unfortunately, I need to get back into it because what I'm reading inspires me to write more. Yeah, like same, honestly. Like honestly, same. Like, Holy Mother of God, like I read this book, like this Deadpool book, and that was my first day of, yeah, my first day of my last job, all the way to here. That is a lot of books. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Holy Mother of God, that is a lot of books. But I haven't really. Okay, so the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle was the book that was recommended to me. Um, but like I haven't read in a while, and that's because I'm just like my head is just in another area right now. Um, like, yeah, it was just in another area at the moment. Um, ah, I don't know why my like Holy Mother of God. Um, but yeah, like genuinely reading is just like for me reading absolutely does inspire creativity. Like I don't want to say here's the thing. I don't want to say that like phones or electronics are going to ruin society because like there are some people who use things like Kindle who read. So, I mean, if you take away like electronics, you could get somebody to read, and their expended attention span could get bigger, in my opinion. Um, like that's pretty much like here's the thing. I used to be a lot into video games when I was a kid. Um, like I would play video games, I would talk about video games, I would even straight up see other people play video games. This is before the internet. I mean, literally just hunch over their shoulder and see what game they're playing. And yeah, like it got so bad that my dad took away all my games, like my video game controllers and my Game Boy or whatever. Like my video game controllers in general. I didn't get a Game Boy until much, much, much later because, as I said before, I am pretty much a decade removed from what's popular. Like, there's a reason why I still have CDs and a VHS copy of the Crocodile Hunter, which is not mine, it is my boyfriend's. But instead, like, it actually got me to read a lot more. Like, a whole lot more. Like, I think the most books I've ever taken out of the library was 20 at a time. And at that point, it was just like, oh my God. Like, it got to the point where even my dad was like, okay, I'm going to have to take away these books. Problem was that he ended up forgetting where he put them in the first place. And just to make things even worse, they were library books. It was one thing to take my regular books, but these were library books that he took. And we ended up with a huge fine afterwards. But yeah, like I used to have a really big book collection, but the messiness started to get to me. And when my kids came along, I needed to make space for them, so I got rid of most of my collection and repurchased the books to read on Kindle. Mm, I get it. Like I absolutely get it. Like I understand. Like I absolutely love seeing other people's book collection because it's just like what kind of people are these, you know? Um like what kind of people are these? Like who is this person or what is this person? Um However, I rarely let like unless somebody asks me, I rarely lend somebody a book of mine. Um a couple of years ago I did let somebody I hate to let go of them. I understand like books are like children. Like books are like children that you have to let go and it's like, "Oh god, I'm probably not going to see you again because they're probably going to be out of print soon." And yeah, mm, ugh, like holy mother of god. Like I absolutely understand. Like I get it. Um it sucks. Like I had to not by my but not because of me, but I remember my dad actually taking some of my books and putting it in the garage and he's like, "Don't worry, they're going to be there. They're going to be right there." And then they're just gone. I don't know what happens to them, you know? Um like I remember my nephews looking at my book collection and being like, "Hey, can we excuse me, can we read one of your books?" And this was the Captain Underpants books that I purchased back when there was a toy store that also sold books a bus ride away. And I'm like, fine, because they were pretty much into comic books or whatever. And I completely forgot that this was during the summer. So they are not going to read any books. They're not going to read books. Absolutely not. They're not going to read books. So I didn't really get back my Captain Underpants books until months later. And they were in good condition when I lent it to them, and now the pages are pretty bent. And I'm like, oh God. I'm like, oh God. I kept these books in prime condition for years, and they're just like wrecked. Um, it was sad to see. It was a sorry sight to see. It was oh god, but I personally want a really big book collection, you know? But at the same time I want a big album collection, which is more like something more than the desk I have. Yep, I keep my books in pristine condition. The only problem is sometimes that they would actually not fit properly into the bag, like my satchel, and it's just like, and pages are bent. So I don't keep all of my books in good condition, but I do try. I do try to keep those books in decent condition. I'm the kind of person who would dedicate an entire room to becoming a personal library. Same here. Like, honestly, same. Like, that's pretty much as to why I like looking around personal libraries, you know? Um, Mostly due to the fact that I genuinely have. Demkeys, how are you? Welcome on in. I hope you're doing okay. We're just talking about books. You're happy? How happy are you? We're just talking about books. Um, but yeah, like I would love to dedicate an entire room to a library. Doing okay? How you doing? I'm gonna be honest. I'm a little bit buzzed still. Like I had a tall glass of water at midnight, and I woke up at around 3:30. So I'm still I'm still feeling the buzz. I'm super happy because one of my closest friend in real life friends is LGBTQ friendly. Congrats. You keep that friend close. Keep them close. You know? Um Absolutely keep your friend close, and I'm so proud that you found one of your friends, cuz I don't know many queer friendly people here, although I don't ask. Um yeah, I don't ask, so that's pretty much on me. But we were discussing. Um, yeah, I've known she's an ally for a while. Just a random thought that occurs to me now and then. It makes me happy. I'm glad that you at least have one friend who will stand by your side. At least one friend, you know? Like, hype to you. Um, oh my goodness. Like, I had a tall glass of water and Ah. Okay. Okay. Living in the part of the world that I do, I tried to distance myself from a couple of people who solely because I knew or assumed. I understand. Like, I absolutely get it. Um, it is intense. It's intense, but I'm glad that I haven't smoked in a while myself. I should have smoked a lot earlier than I did. I should have smoked a lot earlier than I did. Got a drink recently for a celebration. That was fun. Excellent. Excellent. um, as long as you were safe. Like, oh my goodness. I was surprised I kept up a conversation while my brain was like this. Like, I'm gonna say that the stream is only gonna be 90 minutes or so because it's been an hour and it has not shaken off yet. Not to mention, I have a therapy session later today, so I actually have to sleep in order to wake up. And hopefully, by the time I wake up, everything will go away. Excuse me. And I ended up like before I went to bed, I had a tall glass of water and I ate a bag of chips. Like it was this bag. I ate this bag of chips. And I woke up and I'm like, oh, what did I do? I hope it clears up by then. I don't know which one I actually had which tall glass of water I had because, um, oh yeah, you eating well now? Kind of. Like, I didn't eat for pretty much a whole day, but then I had a tall glass of water and I needed something to chew on. So, I ended up eating a whole bunch of chips. And then I passed out. Because I needed. And here's the thing anytime I eat, I have to, like, have a tall glass sometimes because I don't want to feel guilty, you know? Because a lot of the time I feel very guilty in terms of, um, eating, you know? It was like, yeah, yeah, so silly question. You sure it's still a buzz or a low blood sugar? No, it's the buzz. It's the buzz. It absolutely is the buzz. If it was low blood sugar, I would have had to go to the doctor way earlier. Um, but it's just the buzz, considering that, like, it was 3 hours earlier. Like, I did this. I started the stream at 3:59. I had a tall glass of water at around 12:10 a.m. And usually it would just go away. Like, it would go away after a good sleep. So after a good sleep, and I only had a 3 hour sleep. And very rarely do I actually have a tall glass of water before like really before, before the stream. I have tried, but you know, like it's just yeah, it was just because of that. Um, yeah, like it was. Yeah, I've just gone to. I've only like, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, yeah, it was. Oh, you're on 3 hours sleep, and you said you smoked. Yeah, pretty much. I've done it before. It's just that usually whenever I do, I stream. I stream a little bit later. Like I would smoke and get up 4 or 5 hours later to do a stream. Like like right now, whenever I actually have a tall glass of water after a good sleep, the effects just go away. Um, yeah, it's like one of those situations. Um, just 3 hours of sleep. That is just insane. Um, no, I thought you were talking about like 6 or 7 hours of sleep because that was like, damn, that. I mean, um, like I can still. Here's the thing. Sometimes I can still taste the effects. You know, I can still like. It was pretty much remind me of the time. Not right now, but it reminds me of the time when I actually had edibles for the first time and they were cookies. So I would just nibble on them, and then I didn't know what was going on because I was waiting for a while, and then I went back to bed. I just went to bed. And then, literally the next day, I woke up and I felt an odd taste in my mouth. I'm like, okay, so the effects happened while I was sleeping. Okay. But there is such thing as getting too much edibles. Like me and a friend actually made a thing about it one night, where I brought over edibles, and what ended up happening is that since a little bit only lasted, like I only had like a piece on my first time, and it was actually going through me like an hour. I genuinely thought it was going to be the same thing. Like, so we had eaten an entire brownie and half a cookie. We split a cookie, and the effect did not start in an hour. The effect started in like 13 minutes because I remember we were watching Mike Tyson Mysteries, and they were on one couch and I was lying on another. And we watched the first episode okay, but then the beginning of the second episode, it just began like everything just went weird. Yeah, everything just genuinely just went weird, and it was like it was fucked. It was messed up. I gotta say. Um, yeah, it was pretty messed up. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night because at some point I passed out. I remember waking up and I was just like really, my stomach was like, "Urgh," and then I fell to the floor and just threw up. I just threw up on the floor. And um, I remember being like, okay, I think I threw up my soul. I'm gonna need that back. And just when I was about to lick the vomit off the floor, I threw up even more. And here's the thing, like, before I passed out, I actually had some semblance of sanity in my brain. Like there was like my half my brain was just like out there, but the other half was just like, okay, you're actually kind of grounded in reality right now. But when I woke up, I was high. Like monumentally could not put myself outright high. And so, like, my friend woke up at this point and they saw it, and then for some miracle, they ended up cleaning the floor with a mop. And I tried so hard to help them, but I could barely get my body off the floor. And I thought I was going to vomit again, so I just went to the bathroom. And tried to vomit because it was a struggle going to the bathroom. Like, I actually had to, like, crawl to the bathroom. And keep in mind, their brother actually was in the basement, I think, playing video games. And I was just like, But you say bruh. Demkeys, you say bruh. But you have to remember, I was really out of it when I woke up. And then after my friend cleaned up, they went back to bed. And then I was having so much trouble going to bed, and then somehow I passed out. I woke up and I had never had such a bad green out. Like, the green out situation was awful. Um, I was genuinely like, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god. Like, my brain was just all over the place. No, actually, my brain was slow. A green out is pretty much like a blackout. Like, you know how in a blackout you do get drunk and then you don't remember? And it's pretty much like, it is like a hangover. It's like um, it's not like a hangover. A green out is pretty much like, green out is to weed, as blackout is to alcohol. Sometimes you can drink so much or you can smoke so much that you just pass out. Like, you just green out and don't really remember a lot. So that's pretty much how it actually is for me. Um, and that hangover from both of us lasted the entire day. Like, both of us had to both of us had to stay in the couches for pretty much the entire day. And when I actually had to leave the house, I really needed to take a cab home because I did not trust myself. I didn't trust myself to get on the bus. So I ended up going home on the taxi, and then I came home. I ate Swiss LA, and then I went to bed. And then the next day, I still felt a little bit of the hangover, like a little bit, and like by the like, okay, so it was like my body was like this, but my soul was like this. Something was slightly off. And so what ended up happening was I went to work, and by the time I went to work, my body was pretty much like upright, like just like this. It was like, okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, okay, I'm okay. Um, so never again will I actually, like, we both learned an important lesson there, and actually I didn't really learn a lot considering that of like a year or two ago, a friend of mine gave me a couple of edibles, like an edible a half hour each, and I was not feeling it by the time we left, but I did feel it when we were going out to eat somewhere, and oh my god, I felt so not great. Like, at some point, I did not know where I was. Like, I was just genuinely insane. Like, it was, like, out there. I still remember my first time smoking. My buddy said, it's best if we do it together because I don't need someone in case. I actually took a few too many puffs of the joint before he said, dude, it's not a cigarette. I ended up being high for a good 30 or 45 minutes, I think. We had a bunch of combos in that time. And I guarantee you a fair share of those combos you do not remember. Because being high for a good 30 or 45 minutes, it's like, holy mother of God. Um, yeah, like, holy mother of God sometimes. It's like, oh. I remember trying to explain to him that in my mind I felt like an animation, but I seem to be forgetting the frame that was right before this current. Oh, you were out there then. You are absolutely out there. Like, things that make sense to you high do not. Yeah, like, honestly, yeah, we've all been there. Or most of us have been there. You know? For me, I'm a lightweight. Because yesterday I actually had the tall glass of water. I started coughing, and then I'm like, huh. And like, Eka, how are you? Welcome on in. Let me give you a shout out. You are coming in at the last part of the stream because I am so out of it because I had a tall glass of water. But if you're not following Eka77, go follow her. She is a really, really good person. She's intelligent and she plays Fallout. So, yeah, you know she's absolutely amazing. But how are you? Another convo I remember having was why there can't be one central currency in the world instead of multiple currencies. I don't remember its explanation, nor do you have to, because everything is absolutely interesting when you are under the influence. Anytime, Eka. I don't even know where the hell I am right now. So, Eka, thank you for coming. This stream is probably only going to be 90 minutes because my head is just like. I had a tall one. I'm not going to lie. I genuinely do not know how people could actually do it, even with the effects still on their head. And as some of you probably heard, like Moonrose heard, my boyfriend is like, yeah, I could smell it the moment I got in the house. And I'm like, God, I thought I was being so subtle. I thought I was sneaking. After it wore off a bit and I could drive, we went to a cafe and ordered some food and sat outside. I think the dude could tell both of us were high as F. Probably because of the wafts of weed. The wafts of weed just coming from both of you. You know? Like the smell is just like so potent. Even I remember back in my old place, I actually would smoke outside, like the window. Like I would open my screen door and smoke, so none of the smell would go in my room. But it was a mute point, especially when it was really windy outside, and the whole place, the whole house would smell of it. And I'm like, ah, damn it, you know. Um, yeah, like here's the thing: if you work in food, you will absolutely know who's the high ones. You will absolutely know who is like under the influence. And it absolutely is fascinating. Excuse me. Excuse me. Oh. I guess that's my cue to like wrap everything up and promise myself never to have a tall glass of water. For amazing weed, fella, it really does smell like doesn't smell that appealing when it's burned. It doesn't smell appealing when you smell it. Like when you smell it, it does not smell appealing. Like it kind of here's the thing. It bothers me when somebody else actually smells that way on the bus. But whenever I'm just like in a friend's apartment or going to it, it's like, okay, that's comforting. Like I know it's not a stigma anymore, but like at the very least keep it in your house and do not go out of the house smelling like it. Prior to burning, it has a nice sweet and musky scent. As like me. As like me. Oops. I can barely type right now, but everybody, I have to lie down. I was only streaming because I'm supposed to only stream every day. So everybody, thank you all for coming. Hopefully tomorrow's stream will be much longer, and I guarantee you I will be sober because right now I'm just not all the way in my head. We are going to raid Enley Knight. So everybody, thank you all for coming. Yeah, thank you all for coming to whatever this is. I apologize if my head was just all over the place. But until tomorrow, I'm Kiara Strings. I'm a trans woman, and this is the early stream. Thank you, and thank you for the conversation, Moonrose. You have been such an amazing. You've all been amazing. Oh, I really need need to go. You can't see my face right now, but I'm just stretching it like a cartoon character. Oh my god. This is where things fall apart.